Welcome to another episode of Vicarious Insights Learn with Me, the podcast where we delve into the diverse world of disability services, bringing you insights from professionals, parents, and individuals with lived experiences. I'm Jace, your host, and today we have a very special guest joining us. We've got Lucie Tursicova. Lucie is a dedicated therapist at Eucalypt Therapy, specializing in trauma-informed therapeutic interventions, psychotherapy, behavioral support, and educational support, having also worked at Headspace, where she supported young people with their mental health and well-being. Hello, Lucie.
Thank you so much.
We're going to be talking a bit about bullying, looking at somebody with neurodiverse intellectual delays, things like that, who, like, giving this concept to, they might be able to get the concept, but being able to apply that concept.
Yeah.
Because in that moment of the bullying, it's emotion. And that's it is emotion driven and nothing else. They're like, they're doing this is how I'm feeling, and this is how I'm reacting.
Yes. Yeah.
And then because the emotion is loud, they're the one that gets singled out. And
1,000,000%.
they're the one that gets in trouble.
Yep.
And then there's more emotion. And then they get into more trouble because they've directed that emotion potentially at the teacher or whatever.
Yes. Yeah.
Whereas taking that step back, looking at the whole scenario, they weren't the architect of this problem.
Yes.
That was the bully, but the bullies, and I think that's what it sounds like to me. Anecdotally, that's what it sounds like to me. That is a lot of what's happening, especially with this in this realm with people with disabilities. Like everybody's plotting off, oh, the disability kid's acting up again. It's like, no, the guy's poking him in the ribs.
Yeah, exactly. Reactive trauma is very real, and reactive trauma can look exactly how you're saying, Jace. Like, it is very reactive, and all they're doing is trying to survive in that moment. So if we have neurodiversity, if we have intellectual impairment, if we have some cognitive delay, you know, that's going to feel so much more aggressive when they are being bullied, and their responses and their behaviors can look so much bigger. And I guess it's, again, falling back on creating safe spaces for neurodiverse and, you know, intellectually disabled or cognitively disabled people, is understanding why they behave the way that they do. And I think we can take an even bigger step back, Jace, is that there is a statistic out there that 9 out of 10 people with a disability do experience abuse. And that is such a horrible statistic, but it is because of that level of vulnerability. You know, an abuser isn't going to abuse against someone who can fight back. And that's the horrible thing about that, right? So it's about really creating those trauma-informed spaces within schools, within TAFEs, within universities, within places of learning, within the home, you know, to state, I know that this is what this response is going to be. I know that little Billy has these big emotional outbursts when he's being bullied. So we know that, we can predict that. But we still need to understand why that behavior has happened. We need to think a step back, you know. And unfortunately, and I can say this because I am married to a teacher, they are very reactive to behavior. Okay. And I'm the one who's sitting there over the dinner table when we're having our curry to go, well, why do you think that child behaved the way that they did? And, you know, my husband's sitting there going, no, just because he's a shit. No. No, because he always behaves like that. And I'm like, there's always a why. Like, we need to be curious about the why. You know, kids don't just come to school just to be rat bags. They're just existing the best way they know how. And if that's by displaying defiance, if that's by displaying big behaviors, we need to understand what's going to make them feel safer so they don't have to feel like they need to behave in that way. So it's really up to faculty or, you know, administrative staff of schools or TAFEs or universities or whatever that looks like, to be really curious about the why and having that bigger in-depth, I guess, you know, look at behaviors. Because you're absolutely right. If the behavior of the person who's experiencing bullying is bigger than the behavior from the bully. And bullies can be very clandestine,
Oh
and they can
yeah.
be really covert, so they could be niggling, and then, as you said, the outburst happens, and then it's, the person experiencing that is the bad guy, right? So it's about having those conversations. I really do believe deep down in my heart, if we know better, we do better. We can always be better if we just know how. So, having those really big conversations with the people who can make a difference, and that's usually teachers, is like, yeah, we need
Yeah.
to be understanding what's behind behavior rather than punitive measures toward behavior.
And are there rules? I mean, there's rules in the school. Clearly, there's rules in the school. I got in trouble for a lot of them. Uh, but there's rules in the school, but I mean rules in the schools for teachers. So I imagine as a teacher, they've got 30 kids that they've got to be looking after if it's just their class, and they've got to. It's like, okay, cool. 90% of these guys are doing exactly what I want. That one's not. I'm going to stop that so that everybody else stays. Stops rocking the boat.
Yeah,
It does make sense. I can understand where a teacher would go, okay, big noise, boom, shush. All right, no
exactly.
more noise. But in this situation, when little bully boy is walking past, and as you said, clandestinely giving them a tap on the back of the noggin as they walk past, it's
Mm-hmm.
not visible. It's not, they do that 10 times a day, and all of a sudden there's out of nowhere an explosion from this kid that's sucked it up and dealt with it 9 times
Yes,
and just,
yes.
no, I've had enough, and rightly so.
Yeah. Yes.
And I mean, and how else do they deal with it? Do they become a bully? And a bully, do they become a dobber? And they go and dob the men, which is against the schoolyard rules.
Mm-hmm.
And then open themselves up to bullying from more people. Is that
Yeah.
where that goes? Like, so are there rules for the teachers to? So is there a structure for the teachers to go, okay, every time this happens, I'm writing it down. I've got a diary of this. Uh, Child A keeps on acting up in class. He's saying it's because someone's being mean to him. And,
Yeah.
this has happened 10 times. Like, maybe it's because somebody.
Maybe there's someone being mean to him. Exactly. And like, I guess it goes a long way when a teacher, I think we always remember that teacher that like really, really invested. So like if that teacher's in that space and they're recognizing this behavior, and this behavior is happening, probably not consistently, but enough, right? To be that one person that shows that care and that kindness and go, mate, can you tell me what's going on for you? Can you tell me why we're seeing this? And that not only shows the person who's experiencing bullying that, they're believed, and, they have that validation, because that's really important in itself, because a lot of times people are not believed. And I always come from a framework as we believe children and we believe the story that they're trying to tell. Sometimes that story can look a bit confusing, but they're still trying to tell you something. They're still trying to tell you a story. But it also shows that you gave enough time to that young person to be like, I actually care about what your experience is. And that's such a valuable thing to show. I think we've been so caught up as a society to try and build our kids tough, like, oh, it's a big bad world out there, like, got to toughen up the kids because they're going to get out there and they're going to have a boss, and their boss is just going to be horrible for no reason, and they're going to like have this and have that happen in society. But I really don't believe that framework. I really don't believe that that lens, because we shouldn't teach kids that people are inherently bad. If we've got a bully for a boss, or we've got a bully for this, it's not about them being resilient. It's about looking at, well, that boss isn't behaving okay, and there needs to be accountability for that, and there needs to be a process where that's dealt with. Why is it that I guess people just have to kind of accept bad behavior? We should never be in a situation where we just accept it and go, well, that's Charlie, Charlie's a bit gruff and rough around the edges. No, Charlie needs to be better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So takeaway then for teachers there would be same as parents. Be on side
Yeah.
first. Listen.
Be on
Listen, care.
side and just take that time. Take that space to be curious, because as I said, kids are trying to tell their story. And I guess, the big difference between my job and my husband's job is that he's dealing with 30 students and I'm dealing one-on-one with someone, so I have the time to invest and go, tell me your story. I want to know you. I want to know your whole life. Unfortunately, as you said, teachers don't have that time. But if you are seeing something time and time and time again that is disruptive, that is defiant, that is a little left of center, if you're seeing someone withdraw, if you're seeing a student, you know, behaving in a manner that piques your curiosity, be curious, really talk to that young person and go, why? And sometimes a young person isn't going to be able to articulate themselves, and that's okay too. But at least you've demonstrated that you care, because we're all one caring person in our lives of being well, of being better. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and I suppose in that moment of that happening too, if you're listening and caring and they're still in the emotion, they're not going to be able to explain what it is.
100%. I
It's
love
difficult,
to give the demonstration of, like, when we're in a trauma-based response, is that this beautiful part of our brain, like the smart part of our brain, our prefrontal cortex, is like boop, like it completely disengages. Like, I talk about survival-based responses is like when we're in a war, we don't need to know what 2 + 2 is. Like, that's not relevant. We just need to survive. We need to know the actions that we need to do to survive this. We need to survive this. Our mates need to survive this. This is the behavior we're going to do. Okay. And you see that survival response in a lot of children, in a lot of adults, in a lot of adolescents, right? About why they have to survive, like why they're behaving in a survival based response, right? And that's not cohesive to academia either. So if you've got a kid in your classroom that is in survival mode, they're not going to be in a position to learn anyway. So if you're taking the time to find out why they're responding the way that they are, this is going to start to re-engage, and that's going to attach again, and then they're going to be in a space to retain information and to increase in their academic learning anyway. So it really does stem, like, behavior has so much response to everything in our lives, and it makes me curious to why teachers don't learn more about child brain development, but that's a whole other podcast. But yeah, you're going to have better academic results if you're just thinking like that. If you're just thinking about, those tick boxes, your kids are going to respond better if you show them that you understand, and you understand why they're behaving the way that they are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that worked for my brain. I just like
Yes.
tick,
I
tick, tick.
I do it a lot with kids who are in the child protection space, and obviously that's been my bread and butter for a really long time. And when you can demonstrate that to them, like they'll come to you and they're like, Lucie, I'm flipping, like, so
Yeah.
they can understand why they behave the way that they do too. It gives them such validation. We don't ever justify bad behavior, but I always say to people, I get it. I get why you're behaving the way that you are, but that's not okay. We are going to have to find a different way for you to get your needs met here. You are going to have to find a different behavior for me to respond in the way that you're wanting me to respond right now. But kids who grow up in spaces of unsafety don't know. They don't know any other way. So we come back to, we need to teach kids. This is a teachable moment. This is an educatable moment, how we best behave. Because sometimes they don't have that. They don't have that modeling. They don't have that role modeling at home. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Um. So that best way to get back there, get where everything's working so that they can learn, grow, and move forward is
Yeah.
straight back. And it's always that big thing, being on side. Okay, here you've got a place. Tell me what you need. What do you need?
Yeah. I also have another great analogy for this, and I think I've overworn this analogy quite a lot, but I always say, okay, Jace, all right, well, I talk about trauma-based responses as you're going to work, okay, you have your wheat bix, all right, you probably have your protein because you're a fit person, and you're like, you know what, today I'm not going to go to work. I'm actually going to go to this house that I know is haunted, okay, because
Sounds like me.
yeah,
Sounds
exactly. Like the day's young, right? So you go to this haunted house, creaky floorboards, there's spider webs in the corners. Like, what was that? I think I heard something. Oh my God, this is like terrifying. You know what that feels like in your heart. You know that your heart's racing, your breath's labored, your hands are sweating. All right, okay. So we're there. But that's not enough for you, Jace, because you're a thrill seeker. You're going to watch a scary movie in the haunted house, okay? So you're so you're watching that scary movie. So our anxiety is escalating here, okay? But then your friends find out that you're in this haunted house, Jace, and they think that's hilarious. So
I
they
know what they're going
decide
to
they're
do.
going to come to that haunted house and they are going to bang on the windows and doors, all right? What do you do, Jace? What do you do in that moment of banging on the windows and doors?
I'm going to get up and look at the doors.
so,
There's
so
either going to be a ghost there, which is going to be really cool and probably a bit freaky, or I'm going to find out what the problem is.
okay, so you're what I'm hearing is you're a very chill person. And it takes a lot for you to get to outburst phase. So what would normally happen, Jace,
Oh,
is that
sorry.
you either
Did I break the story? Sorry.
so
Just wanted to
we
see a ghost.
I know you're like, maybe there's a ghost there and I want to see them. I want to be their friend. So usually people go outside and they punch all of their friends in the face, or they run away never to be seen again, or they freeze. So that's what we're talking about with a trauma-based response. Our body goes into shutdown. So bloop, smart part of the brain shuts down. This part of the brain's like, all right, Jace, this is what you need to do to survive. We're running away, we're fighting the threat, or we're freezing, being that fawn in like the lion's mouth, just going, oh my God, just get it over with. If I'm going to die, I'm just going to die peacefully, you know? So when we talk about that escalation, when we're talking about haunted house, scary movie, banging on the windows and doors, we talk about how we kind of escalate, like de-escalate those feelings and those sensations within the body, and that's going to cause this reconnection to happen. So we do that in several ways of like, you know, I found that with young people that are quite escalated, like just having that safe place, like, you know, having that time away from the threat, being held, having something heavy over top of them, you know, in that moment they're not going to be able to figure this out for themselves. They really do need to have someone co-regulate their emotions with them, and we drain off those big emotions and then they come back down to baseline. But unfortunately some people are waking up already in the haunted house. Like there's no baseline here, they're already escalated.
Yeah.
So it's not going to take much to get to banging on the windows and doors for them. Okay, so you see these big outbursts and you're like, holy crap, where did that come from? Because you're not playing on an even playing field.
Yeah.
They're already hyper vigilant, they're already anxious, they're already preparing for the next wall, and the brain's already starting to disengage and go, no, we need to fight our way out of this, we need to run away, or we need to respond in a survival way. And we do find that a lot, I guess, with post-traumatic stress disorder is we're teaching, you know, people to fight those battles, right? And then wonder when the threat is no longer there, why people aren't responding like the threat is no longer there. Because the brain's going to trick us. They're going to be like, no, we have to prepare for the next battle. We have to prepare for the next war because that keeps us safe. That's going to keep us safe is to be hyper vigilant all the time. And we're finding that a lot with our young people is they're so anxious about what could be. And if they're experiencing bullying, you know, the school isn't a safe place for them. They're re-entering the battlefield. So they're having to prepare for that fight, right? And sometimes when we are in a space of, that fight or flight, we don't make good decisions. We're just purely surviving. But that's for the bully as well. They're not making good decisions either. They're just surviving. They're fighting off a perceived threat. So, yeah.
Oh.
But it was very cool that you wanted to meet a ghost. That was also a good story.
I grew up with Casper. Okay. This is going to be when I'm going back. As I go back and I edit this, I find the edit process is actually really good because I go over and over and over and over the same bits again. So
yeah.
This is going to be some interesting insights as I'm doing that. Thank you.
Yeah.
There's things where you've got that concept and you're like, in the moment, you're like, I get that concept.
Yeah.
But as I listen to it again later on, my brain's more primed to understand it a bit more. And then the 28th time that I get to that editing part, I'm like, now I get that bit. Yeah.
I feel like that's one of my key strengths is breaking down very complex neuropsychology into, biteable chunks.
But that's the thing, that shows that you understand it.
Yeah.
If you can chunk it down to the point that Jace can understand it, we're good.
That's my goal in life is like, what would Jason understand?
There you go. They're happy to help. All right. So what are some of the key signs that a child might be experiencing bullying?
Oh, that is a really, really good one. Okay, so exactly what you were saying before about those big emotional outbursts.
Yep.
It's also any change in behavior, whether that be positive, negative, or indifferent. Okay, so we also find that a lot of people start to withdraw. A lot of people's, I guess, grades can start to slip, academia can start to slip. If they're not doing the things that they would normally do that bring them joy, or engage in things that they would normally do to make themselves happy. So that could be engaging in a sporting team, or changing friend groups and starting to isolate themselves, or starting to sit by themselves, starting to be quieter in a classroom perspective, and just, I guess, their demeanor as well. Demeanor can change. They try and make themselves small. They try to make themselves conform within a space where they don't feel safe. And that's kind of the whole seen but not heard kind of scenario. I like to say with people who are trying to make themselves like small and trying to make themselves conform, it's kind of like, those mattresses that come in boxes. And you're like, there's no way a mattress could fit in that box. Like, that box is so small, right? And then, like, but why is the mattress in the box? It's in there to conform to, like, the most mattresses can be moved if they're the smallest, more better size, right? So we're in that box. We're conforming into this space, but that's not our purpose. We can't sleep on a box. We can only sleep on a mattress, right? And this is my big thing with therapy, is with therapy, what I'm trying to do is remove that box. I'm trying to remove that box, and then I remove the cling wrap, and then you unfurl into the person that you were always meant to be. And you're always meant to be the mattress. You were born to be the mattress, right? You weren't born to be the box. So if you're seeing someone who is trying to conform into a space that is not them, that is a really big sign that there is something going on. Even if it's not bullying, there's still something going on that's worthy of curiosity. But the other thing as well is when we unfurl into the mattress can't go back in the box, Jace. Like, we know too much now. We're there. So we kind of try and squish the edges in to kind of conform to our situation. So, but it should never be that way. We should always be our true, authentic selves, right? And I feel like, society should be accepting of that as well. But that's a different story. But yeah, like, just seeing someone changing in their behavior, and it can be very like tiny little behaviors. The other thing as well that you can see is a level of defiance, or a level of, I guess, talking back and being disruptive. When we experience bullying, as you said, like you could go in there and fight the biggest fight the biggest bully in the space, right? Or like stand up for yourself. If you're making yourself big in a space, is also a big sign that there's something going on for you as well, is like, making that, I guess, kind of putting into the universe that you aren't someone to be messed with, that, you do have that level of confidence. But we also see that as a fight response. So that's also, again, a survival response, is like being disruptive or being, combative and things like that as well. That would be showing me that something's not feeling right, that someone's not feeling safe. So,
So
yeah.
is that like in a so is that like practicing, like, okay, I'm gonna fight mum and dad with everything they say to me because I am in a safe space. If I can practice fighting them, then maybe I can. Or have I just taken that off the playing field?
No, that's a really good, no, that's a really, really good feedback. And I always say this to foster carers as well. If they've got like kids in their care, I always say to them, look, you're going to cop the worst behavior. You're going to cop the worst of it, right? Because they feel safe to do so. They feel safe to understand why, and that can look quite confronting, right? But do you think that they're going to yell at their mum or dad the way that they're yelling at you? Of course not. They don't feel safe to do that. And I think that's where bullying really stems from, right? Is, I don't feel seen or heard, or I can't kind of let those big emotions out because I can't yell at my bully. So now I need to start, bullying other people, right? So it's that kind of transference of behavior. And we see that as well with people, because bullies 9 times out of 10 are also being bullied. So it's that kind of chain of events, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I can see the cogs ticking. I like it.
I like that. That's why I love to, like, I get to pick the brains of people that know more. Like, in this instance here, this I've got clients, families, parents that I'm having this discussion with. So
Yes,
for
yeah.
saying things, I've got filing cabinets open to put the stuff straight in. I'm like, I need to know that for them. Oh,
Yes, yeah.
they need to know that bit. Oh, that's something I could probably use one day. Like that's the weird looks I'm going all over the place. But yeah, no, this is, and hopefully any of the parents or one of the kids that are listening to this, that and the teachers,
And the teachers,
and
yes.
the teachers. I think that's like, yeah. So how would you say that parents can create an open environment for the children to talk about bullying?
Oh, that is another really, really good question. Again, it's just creating those spaces where it's kind of like, it'd be pulse checking, I guess. So, I'm going to use another analogy. So, usually we find that, when you turn 2 or 3, kids are trying to pulse check who are safe people. And how they do that, Jace, is by having tantrums. So baby has tantrum in Woolworths because you haven't bought them the Kit Kat, okay? So you're either going to respond in a few ways. You're either going to go, all right, come on. Hold on, I'll pick up. Well, come on, all right, that's enough. You're not getting your Kit Kat, but we're going to co-regulate our emotions. It's okay. I'm still that safe person for you. But we are going to leave Woolworths without the Kit Kat. It's going to be okay. You're going to be all right. Or you can be that parent that's like, oh my God, everyone's watching. Like, oh, this is so embarrassing. Like, get up, get up, get in the trolley now. Like, so it's kind of those responses that the child is pulse checking. It's either you are that safe person or you are not that safe person. When we're creating a space for people when they're older, it's again those pulse checking moments when a kid comes to you and tells you a story about school, and you're, knee deep in mashed potato and you're trying to do two things at once and like everything's all loud and crazy and overstimulating, and a kid comes to you and goes, oh, at school today, this kid, I actually love these stories. My second eldest used to come in and tell me a story about this one particular student, and he'd do something wacky every day. And one of the days he would come in and play like Fortnite theme music and like walk into a classroom and high five everyone. I'm like, oh, that is awesome. That kid is so cool, So like when kids come to you with these stories, it might be like, I don't give a crap about what little Billy's doing and Fortnite and slapping fives. Like, I don't know. Like, can't you see I'm busy with the mashed potatoes? They're pulse checking you. They're pulse checking to see whether you're that person that they can go to. If they can't go to you with the small stuff, how are they going to come to you with the bigger stuff? How are they going to know that you're actually going to care? So it's those moments of communication, opening up those forms of communication. And even if you're at the table and you go, how was school today? And you get a, huh? At least you've showed I care. I care about what your day looked like, even if you're not ready to talk about it, or if it's something, I always do the whole like, not like, what was your day like? I'm like, name 2 things awesome that happened today.
Yeah.
Like, can you name 2 things that were awesome, And they're like, well, this happened. I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's 1. That's good enough, So like kind of giving them a bit more direction about what that looks like. But kind of opening those conversations, even if it just seems mundane and every day, shows that you are that person that's going to be there when the rubber hits the road and it looks a bit tough. So when the bigger stuff comes up, it might look like those pulse checking conversations, because it's never usually the come home and go, oh, like this big thing is happening. So yeah, teenagers will always try and, adolescents will always try and pulse check that first. And if we have an environment where, I guess, there's some emotional avoidance, or kind of like that, avoided attachment, that might look like kids taking a lot longer to come forward with that. So it's really recognizing that, like, am I creating a space of emotional safety here? And that could start with the parents, is going, no, I can do better. I can do better in that space.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. There was that what you just said. There was a do better, Jace, moment in there for me, and I'm like, here's a place to improve. That's
We can always do better. When we know better, we do better.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
And all right, so strategies. Now we have gone over this a bit of this, but say itemized list. Like, yeah, that's a good question. Strategies parents can use to support the child if they are being bullied. So what's like a checklist of like, okay, if I do this, and this.
Yeah. First things first, we believe their experience and we validate that experience.
Yeah.
That's not okay. That's not acceptable behavior. I can understand how that's impacted you. I am so sorry that this is happening to you. How do you feel? How's that made you feel? What are we going to do next? What do you want to see moving forward? Sometimes kids don't know what that looks like. It's okay, so if you don't know what that looks like, this is what I would like to see. I would like to see change, and I would like to see behavioral change to make sure that this is a safe environment for you to turn to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have conversations with people that can assist with that behavioral change. So that's meetings with administrators of staff, this sort of, like, teachers, whatever, guidance counselors. Bring the guido into it. It's always a good thing. Okay. And have those conversations. This has been my child's experience, and what are we going to do moving forward to make sure my child feels safe coming to school? And what are going to be, I guess, the ramifications for the behavior that's being displayed by the bully? Okay. Again, it's not all punitive. It can look like a learning experience for that child as well. Like, we're teaching that child to behave better. Always ask for restorative justice. I think restorative justice is a wonderful tool that all schools should be using. If they don't know, Google is free, my friend. Google that and what that looks like, okay? And really, really advocate for that space. But the thing is that we believe children when they come to us with their story, okay? And I guess that also opens that door of like, okay, how do I say this? Sometimes kids need a need met, and that story can look a little bit different. Okay. And I'll use an example of my own children because I'm sure they're going to listen to this podcast, aren't you, children? And be like, oh, mummy's so embarrassing. But my eldest, we had a house that backed onto a park, and he wanted to go to the park. And I was like, look, I'm a little bit busy at the moment with work, but the park is literally right behind the house. And, I'll keep an eye on you. It's going to be okay. So he comes back crying probably about 10 minutes later. And I said, oh, why are you upset? And I guess kids need to create that story, that narrative of what it looks like to justify why they feel the way that they do. And he said, oh, there was two people down there, and they were being really mean to me, and they were picking on me, and they were calling me bad names. And I said, okay, well, I'm not seeing any people down there, but I said, it is actually okay that when you went there by yourself, you felt scared, or you felt lonely, or you felt like mummy wasn't giving you the time that you needed in that space. And that's okay. That's okay to be upset about that. We don't have to kind of create this narrative that you think I need to hear to give you the response that you need right now. So kids, I guess, want a response, and sometimes they will inflate a story to get the response that they require if like little things haven't been kind of given, right? But just creating, again, for parents to create that space is like, I will hear you, big, small, fat, thin, short, tall, whatever this looks like, I will hear you, I will listen to you, and I will validate you, and I understand why you feel the way that you do. Okay. And yeah, so I guess when I say believe children, I say we need to believe that the emotion that they're feeling is real, and they're not feeling safe, they're not feeling heard, they're not feeling understood, they're not feeling validated, or they're feeling scared, whatever that looks like. And we believe them, and we want to make changes to make sure that they don't feel that way moving forward.
Okay, and so those stories, they're not lies, they're expressions of the feeling.
To get a need met, exactly. And I think when we talk about trauma, I always say to people, like, we have an experience that has caused us pain and hurt and sadness and trauma, and we have a feeling that should be associated with that, okay? But when the trauma happens, we're not getting in the fetal position and crying. That's not safe to do so in that moment. Okay. So we haven't had the emotion that's supposed to be linked to that because we're just surviving. So when people usually come to therapy, they're like, oh, I'm just breaking down and crying all the time and nothing's happened. Like, I don't understand why I feel the way that I feel. And that's those residual feelings that they should have felt then, but they weren't safe to do so. But they're always going to come up, Jace. They never just go away, So those big feelings, I guess, for adolescents and especially younger children, even people in their 20s and 30s, they don't understand why these feelings are happening. So maybe they will, find a narrative that fits that. But it's always like, I believe that you feel this way. I believe that you're hurting right now, But when we're talking about the big stuff, when we're talking about abuse, when we're talking about assault, especially in a sexual nature, we believe children 100% up and down, left and right. We believe children when they tell that story.
Okay.
Yeah.
Positives. Something I like to help with is the positives. Building confidence and self-esteem to help to handle bullying situations.
Yeah.
So with I mean, for me, I'm like, yeah, for the neurodiverse. But what are, say, things that we can help them with? Is it going to be rote learning? Is it going to just be giving them reasons to feel confident?
Yeah, I think that's definitely a whole part of this as well, is giving that empowerment, because bullying happens within a space of vulnerability. If we're taking away that vulnerability, we are creating a space where bullying can't kind of infiltrate. Do you know what I mean? So giving that confidence, giving that empowerment, giving that, I guess, that psychoeducation to understand that, bullies are hurting as well, but we're not going to accept that behavior. We do not deserve that behavior. And, so it is about building self-confidence. And also, like when you are feeling threatened, and this is why self-defense is so important as well, like knowing that if you are in a situation where you have to defend yourself, that's confidence in itself, right? You may live a lifetime never having to use those skills, but knowing that you can is very empowering as well. So yeah, we definitely have to look at that with our young people as well.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much, Lucie, for joining in today. For any of our listeners, what are some good ways to get in contact with you?
So my website is www.eucalypt therapy, all one word. So that's eucalypt, not eucalyptus. All right. Eucalypttherapy.com.au. You can make all bookings online. We're on all the socials if you want to check us out, and check out all of the good things that we do. We are located in Ashmore in the Gold Coast.
I will have links to this on the website, the podcast, and on YouTube, so you will be able to see them if you didn't catch that. Any other takeaways? Anything that any pearls of wisdom that you've got for anyone that's listening about bullying, or about any pearls of wisdom?
Just really understanding that bullying is never okay. Bullying is never a justifiable behavior, okay? And also understanding that this is not about you, my sweet little chestnut. It is about the bully and the bully hurting, okay? And it's so hard, and it's so, you know, hurtful to be experiencing bullying, but, we can get through this together. There are people there to support you. There are people who believe you. There are people who can validate you. And at the end of the day, the world is so much better with you in it than not. So please remember that.
Love it. Love it. So thank you. That's a good pearl. That's a good pearl. So, well, that will bring us to the end of today's episode of Vicarious Insights Learn with me. And thank you so much, Lucie, for joining us from Eucalypt Therapy, and sharing your valuable insights and experiences. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode. We're on all of the podcast places and YouTube and my website. The links will be below. Don't forget to leave us a rating and a review. Comment, ask questions. Any questions for Lucie? Any questions for me? Anything you want to see in the future, please ask. Remember, Vicarious Insights, we're all about learning and growing together. So if you have any questions or topics you'd like to cover, or guests you'd like to hear from, feel free to reach out to us on the social media. And thank you for tuning in. We'll catch you in the next episode. Until then, keep learning, stay inspired, and let's continue to make a positive impact together.